Welcome everybody to another edition of Coffee and Open Source, a place to meet some new friends, have some great conversations, and maybe learn something on the way. I'm your host, Isaac Levin. If you're enjoying the conversations here, be sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching or listening. Also, if you or someone you know would like to come on and have a conversation with me, feel free to reach out to me on whatever social media platform you're on, because I'm probably there. And the best way to find out where I'm at is if you go to isaacrlevin.com. That'll take you to all the places that I'm at, and feel free to reach out. So with that out of the way, I'm looking forward to the chat that we're about to have. We were talking a little bit before about speaking and DevRel and all these sort of different things. I'm looking forward to kind of continuing that conversation. So my guest today is Adriana Villela. Adriana, do you want to say hello, introduce yourself? How was that pronunciation, by the way? It was okay?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty
Okay.
good. That was
All right.
awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Isaac. My name's Adriana Villela. I am a principal developer advocate at Dynatrace, and I am originally from Brazil, but right now I am based out of Toronto, Canada. I've actually been living in Canada for the last 35 years. Moved to Canada when I was 10, so you can calculate my age from there.
Sure.
I am old. I've been around for a while. And that means I've seen a lot of cool stuff.
Do you get opportunities much to practice Portuguese, or is there much opportunity to speak Portuguese in Canada, in like Toronto area?
So I moved here with my parents and my sister. My mom died 3 years ago, but I still speak in Portuguese with my dad and my sister whenever I talk to them on the phone, and I stay in touch with my various relatives in Brazil and Portugal on a family WhatsApp group chat. So I keep up with the written Portuguese there,
Sure.
and then I was in Portugal recently, which was lots of fun for Casey de Porto, which was great because it was one of those rare opportunities where I get to spend the entire day speaking Portuguese. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
when I switched over to English to like interact with fellow conference goers and friends, it was kind of funny because my brain, like, I'm usually used to like, interacting mostly in English, and then Portuguese is kind of like the bonus. And this time it was the other way around, where it was like all day in the other language, my
Sure.
my native tongue,
Yeah.
but not so much like I wouldn't say, I don't think I even think in Portuguese anymore because I've
Mm,
been here for so long. So
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine like the feeling of, you're going to a shop or going to a restaurant and then just being able to have a conversation with that person in a language that you share. Especially like it's a fun thing to do, like around other speakers too. They're like, "Oh, we understood," it's one of those things. It's kind of fun.
It
Plus,
is.
I'm 100% in the belief that if you can speak a language of a country that you're in, at least somewhat, you're gonna get treated better. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know how accurate it is, but anyway.
Yeah, I would say so. Like I always appreciate it when, like whenever I'm like in Portugal and someone's like trying to speak Portuguese and it's not perfect, but it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you're making an effort. So I think that's
Yeah.
cool.
One of the things that I try to do whenever I go to a different country that I don't know the language, I try to learn like a few phrases that are, I don't speak the language, but whatever it is, but I'm trying. If you learn
Yeah, yeah.
that, and people like respond pretty well to that. Um, Also, I think it's a very good warning as to like, basically, I'm an American, please help. Like, which, I'd imagine, like, because most Americans, let's be real, like, we don't care. It's like the assumption is you should speak English because I'm here. But anyway, uh, so I'd like to, first off, let's learn a little bit about how you got started. So one of the things I love learning about from folks is like, when did technology first approach them? Like, do you remember like a particular time or a story when you realized like, oh, like this technology thing, like this computer thing, like this is what I enjoy doing and I want to mess around with it for a bit?
So my first foray into computers started, I think I think it was like 1988, and it was the first time I had seen a mouse.
Mm,
And my dad, and my dad works, well, he's retired now, but he used to work in tech. And he was a software architect. And So, he's the one who introduced me to all the computer things. And I remember being at his office one day and he's like, "Do you want to see a mouse?" I'm like, "Ooh, this is so cool. Yes." So I didn't know what to imagine at that point, right? Like, what is a mouse? And
Sure.
then to my disappointment, I'm like, "It's an arrow?
Yeah,
What?
right. Yeah.
What are you talking about?" It's like, yeah, so that was that was quite interesting. But that I would say that was like one of my earliest memories of tech. I think another one I remember when I was younger, my parents had I don't even know what kind of computer it was. But it was one of those ones that you hook up like just a regular TV to,
Mm,
and it had cartridges. I don't know. I don't know what kind of computer it is. It probably makes me a bad techie for not knowing, but
sure.
I remember the thing I thought was cool about this computer is that there was a game where you could like just like kind of make a face, create a face. So you
Okay.
could like choose the hair and choose the glasses and there was like curly hair and my mom had curly hair. So I like remember drawing, on this computer a person and adding the curly hair and the glasses. And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I'm like, ooh, I get to make a person on the screen. But
Yeah.
so that was my earlier exposure to technology. But I think the first time I was introduced to code was probably like 1989, and my dad he had bought our first I guess like more permanent proper home computer. It was a 386 SX. It ran on DOS and Windows, and he's like, "Can I show you something cool?" And so he showed me BASIC, and that was my very first programming language. And I fiddled around with BASIC, QBasic. I took like even in high school, I took a computer class in grades 10 and 11 using Visual Basic. But the funny thing is like it never clicked. And especially like my dad, he software architect, math major. He was playing around with computers since like the time of punch
Sure.
cards. So he was like an early adopter. And he was very like he's got a very analytical mind and he's like, "Oh, you should like make up problems to do this and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, it was like very off-putting to me.
Yeah.
So for a very long time, I was like, ugh, I don't want to do
Yeah.
this. I don't want to touch computers. And then for university, like I went to study engineering. And what do they have? Freaking computer class
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
like a compulsory class. And we had to learn how to code in C. And for some reason, and at that point, I'm like, "Ugh, I don't want to do computers." I started out like with as a mechanical engineering major. I graduated as an industrial engineering major. Um, and but it was in university where I finally where things clicked for me in
Sure.
a
Sure.
way that they didn't click before. Like even taking the computer classes in high school, I was like, I kind of get it, but I don't know, something clicked for me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is actually really cool. And after my first year of university, I even considered going and switching to like a computer engineering major, but then they're like, oh, if you do that, you have to redo first year. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope.
No. No. No.
No, thank you. I'll just graduate with the degree
Sure.
I'm going for right now. I ended up, like I said, I ended up switching to industrial engineering, which ended up working out better because I ended up taking a bunch of computery courses like data
Yeah.
structures and algorithms. I took a microprocessor course, and my intention was always like, I do not plan on being a practicing industrial engineer.
Mm,
I just want to get the degree and
yep.
I want to work in tech, and I always made sure that my summer jobs were tech focused. So I worked at the Canadian Space Agency for a summer where I developed software using this programming language called LabVIEW, which was a visual
Yeah.
programming language.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I don't know anything about it, but
so I used
I've heard of LabVIEW because I've worked in
you've heard
other.
of it? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. Like so, I used to work in a tool called Web Methods, which is kind of like similar.
Oh my God. Remember Web
Yeah.
Methods?
So I yeah, that was like one of the
Yeah.
first programming languages I learned. Anyway, stop. I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, no, yeah, that's such a blast from the past. Yeah, so like LabVIEW was like kind of my first like actual real coding job, and then from that it was kind of it was kind of funny because from that work, my boss there encouraged me to write a paper for the Antenna Measurement Techniques Association, which is like
Such a
an
government thing to
electrical
do.
engineering group,
Yeah.
a student paper, and with a co-writer, and we submitted it to this conference, and it got. So first of all, it got published, and then we got accepted to speak. So I guess that was like my first actual conference. Now that I think about it, it
That's
was
great.
like in the late 90s. I was a student, and I spoke at this conference. Um, and then I remember like walking around the conference floor, and people were like, "Oh, I really liked your talk, really liked your talk." And then I met these guys from like Daimler Chrysler Aerospace. Remember when
Hmm.
Daimler and Chrysler
Yep.
had merged? It was during that time, and they had an aerospace division. And this guy's like, "Yeah, I work at Daimler Chrysler Aerospace in Munich." I'm like, "I would love to work in Munich."
Sure.
And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, we could totally make that happen." I'm like, "What?"
It's just
And
just
lo
that
and
easy.
behold,
Yeah.
they made it happen. So I spent a summer, the summer after my third year university, working in Munich. And basically Java code to develop an intranet for Daimler Chrysler Aerospace while I was there. And it was like one of the coolest experiences. And I remember, so it was like early-ish days of Java, when Java was like the new cool kid.
Sure.
And I was using, I think it was using JRun, which was like one of the early Java app servers. And yeah, so I wrote this code for them. And so by the time I graduated university, I was like, yeah, I've got the software engineering chops. And
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
that's very impressive. Like, I mean, to have like a couple of actual like I would call them because those internships are great. Like I'll say this because it actually teaches you like what it's actually work like how it actually works like with like doing computers like actually working at a company. One of the biggest knock like comments that I've always had about like practical education in the computer science curriculum is like you're doing like a lot of abstract things and not a lot of
Mhm.
it can be easily related to like this is what you would do in the quote unquote real world. And the fact that you had some internships that actually were able, I mean, let's be real, like the fact, you worked for the Canadian Space Agency, already very cool. Then you got to go and
Yeah.
work for a very, very large multi conglomerate that happens to be in a different country, also very cool. These are jobs that you had before you like even graduated. So like I think
Yeah.
the next question that I have in relate to that is like when did you realize that there was like career aspirations, there was like money to make in tech? Was it like one of those things which you kind of knew like almost immediately, like I want to be in tech, I want to be a computer engineer, my father did it, I enjoyed that sort of stuff, and then things kind of clicked into place for you? Or was there a point in time where maybe it was your first job where you're like, oh, there's money here, I should stay in this field forever?
Yeah, I think it was after that first summer job at the Canadian Space Agency where I was like, "Oh, this software stuff is cool." Now, for me, it was never about the money because I remember like when like the graduating class, like my graduating year, I remember that class was like at the time the largest graduating class for computer engineering at the University of Toronto where I went to school. And I remember talking to so many of the computer engineering students, and I'd be like, "Oh, so do you like computers?" And people are like, "Nah, I just want to make money off of it." Or my
Oh,
mommy said it's
interesting.
very profitable, and I'm like,
Interesting.
meanwhile, I'm in industrial engineering, and I'm like, yeah, I'll probably go into software not because of the money. I didn't even know how good the
Yeah.
money was, to be honest. I was just like, this stuff's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but at first I didn't even want to follow in my dad's footsteps. Like my sister is a psychiatrist, so she has gone as
Opposite.
far away from my dad's footsteps as possible. And it's funny too, because my first job out of school, I worked at Accenture. And lo and behold, my dad worked at Accenture. And my husband, who I met at work, also worked at Accenture. So at one point, there were three of us working at Accenture. And I remember when I applied to work at Accenture, my dad's like, if you think I'm going to help you get a job there just because I work at Accenture, think again. I'm like, yo, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want help. I want to apply because like back in the day, working at a consulting company like that was like super, super prestigious. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and it felt like also, because of the fact that I was graduating with an industrial engineering degree, in spite of the fact that I had all this experience writing software, like paid experience writing software, it was kind of surprising how many organizations were a little more hesitant to hire someone who didn't have, like specifically a computer science or
The
computer
degree.
engineering
Yeah.
degree, right? So Accenture ended up being kind of perfect because at the time they had this mentality of like, let's just everyone starts out entry level as a developer,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I can't say I agree with because some people have no business ever touching a computer, but it worked in my favor because it was perfect because it was like the in that I needed to
Sure.
get get my foot in the door, so to speak, in the actual like full-time job world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's great. For what it's worth, I used to work at Avanade, which is kind of like Accenture.
Ah,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I remember somebody telling me like either my first or second day, like when they sent you the onboarding. I don't know if the you folks onboarded in Illinois or not. I don't know if you did that.
St. Charles.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this is a whole
Yeah.
different thing. If
Yep.
people are listening and they worked at Accenture, they're like, yeah, St. Charles, let's go.
St. Charles is great.
I remember somebody told me, like, I think my first or second day, they said quite frankly, like, we're not looking for people with any specific skill set. We're looking for problem solvers. People that can see a problem and figure out how to fix it with whatever means they have necessary. And in our particular case, because we're engineers or software developers, it's around using software to solve problems. And I was really resonating with that. Like, I mean, I'll be the first to say, like, I'm not the best engineer. Like, I was in computer science. It didn't work out for me. I switched over to information systems because I didn't look. I appreciate the value in being able to build like an ATM using C, but I didn't really see the value of like how am I going to make like a career out of this sort of thing. So going over to like a more business centered degree that was around technology like really resonated with me. But I think one of the things I find interesting, especially with your backstory about it being like in like I guess practical engineering and then going to software engineering, like are there some of the are there problem solving skills or things that you kind of remember when you were going through school that kind of directly correlated into I guess being successful in software engineering?
Um, I don't think it had anything to do with the courses per
Sure.
se, to be honest. Like, I mean, I back in the day, I was great at calculus. Couldn't couldn't tell you how to do a derivative or an integral these days.
Sure. Sure.
Um, so a lot of those skills from the classes, I would say, have, just gone. Like,
Oh yeah.
but I think one thing that university did teach me was like, I would say time management. The fact that I remember in high school, I went from like, I think 6 courses total in my last year of high school to like, I think 5 courses in one semester in my first year of university. I'm like, crap. All of a sudden, you're having to juggle all the stuff. Like the amount of work was exponential. Having to like, do hands-on projects, I'd say was like interesting, not so much from the stuff that I learned, like from I learned stuff from the process of doing
Yeah.
the hands-on projects,
Hmm.
right? So it's all like this sort of adjacent learning that came as a result of being in school. So I'd say those skills came in handy. Now, one thing that I would say that school was kind of crappy at teaching me is that I found when I graduated university, um, I was a terrible worker. I was a great student. I
Mm,
had a pretty good average graduating, but like, who cares? At
that's
the
fair.
end of the day, who cares? Because all it proved is that I was good enough at taking the tests that would have gotten
Yeah.
me to pass.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was measuring exactly. And the thing that I think I appreciate most about my time at Accenture is that you get thrown into these situations as a young kid out of
Yes.
school where like
Yes.
you're the expert. And you're like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, okay. So that taught me to think fast. That taught me to pick stuff up quickly. Um, and I think maybe like university helped me with some of the time management skills, but I would say getting thrust into the cutthroat world of consulting in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the best school of all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's something to say too about um the problem solving aspect of things. I think I mentioned this a bit earlier, where if you're brought into a situation and it's like, oh, like these people from Accenture, like they're thought leaders, they're subject matter experts, like they're gonna fix all of your problems, right? And for what it's worth, like a client or a customer will pay Accenture lots and lots of money for people, regardless if they're fresh out of school or they have whatever, right? Like, I remember I saw my bill rate one time when I worked at Avanade, and I got like actually sick to my stomach. Like I found out, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so like those sort of things. So you kind of there's this expectation that you know what you're doing, and if you're on the right projects, it's great because you can kind of work with
Yeah.
people that are more leader, like they've been there longer. They not only know like the technology things, but they know how it just works to be in consulting. Because I think that there's a very specific skill set that's needed to be in a consultant. That's like,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's not really taught. Like I
Yeah.
remember, like this is completely outside the scope of this conversation, but I had a job like working at Best Buy when I was in college, and I worked at Geek Squad, like the people that like fix computers. And I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
my manager told me, quite frankly, like I can give you a computer book and you can learn all the things about computers, but I can't teach you how to have a conversation with a customer, how to sell something to a customer, how to have empathy when they're having issues, all the things, right? I can't teach you that. Those are unlearnable skills, in his opinion.
Yeah.
And I think just the flip of that is like when you go to consulting, all of those things are required for the job. But like when you're in
Yeah.
college, they don't teach you like how to have customer empathy 101. They don't teach you how to be patient while getting yelled at in a meeting 205. Like these classes don't exist, right? These are things you have to
So
learn.
true.
You have to learn, or you find out very quickly, which a lot of people, when they get into the Accentures or the PricewaterhouseCoopers, like the big four sort of consulting agencies, they find out like, oh, this isn't for me at all because I don't enjoy the game that gets played in these kind of consulting sort of engagements. Did you enjoy the work? Like I know that you obviously eventually you left Accenture, but did you enjoy it to the effect that like you go from project to project and you have to context switch every 6 months or every year? You learn new people, you learn new things, new technology. That did you embrace that, or was that something that was a bit challenging for you?
I think I enjoyed it to a certain
Sure, that's
extent,
fair.
because I think I did learn a lot of stuff along the way, which was really good. I think what I didn't like, but also it was a good life lesson. It was very go go go.
Yes.
Like the first project I was thrown into was like I was working 7 days a week, 14-hour days for like a month and a half, and I burnt out pretty fast. And
Yeah.
I remember when I graduated university, I'm like, this is gonna be great because like in the workforce, you don't have any homework, so when you're done, you're done. Yeah,
Oh, the
except in
biggest
those,
lie told you. Yeah,
yeah, I
the
know,
biggest lie.
right? Yeah, and then like here I am, my first billable role, and I am dying. And I remember like I was living at home at the time and my mom's like, when are you coming home for dinner? I'm like, Mom, instead of asking when I'm coming home for dinner, just assume I'm not, and I tell you when I come home for dinner, because it was very intense. And one thing that I learned from that experience was to learn to advocate for myself because I think a lot of people fresh out of school get taken advantage of,
Yes.
right? Because it's like you're eager and you're willing to learn and you need to pay your dues. Like I hate this whole pay your dues thing personally.
Sure.
Why do you have to suffer so much um, to get the learning experience? Like I suffered, so you must suffer. Like, come on,
Yeah.
man, like get
Yeah.
over yourself. So I remember at this role at one point, like after working, I was supposed to work a weekend, and I was like, I can't take this anymore, man. Like I'm exhausted. So there's this other guy on my team, and we're like, oh, we're so tired. We're gonna talk to our manager about this. And his name was Dale, and Dale was getting married, so his fiance was pretty pissed that he was never around, right? And so he was gonna also like push back, and Dale and I were going to talk to our manager. Then Dale chickened out on
Oh
me. It was
no.
just me, just me, single me, living with mom and dad still, complaining about the overtime. I'm like, yo, I need a break. And my manager gave me a break, but I was the only one who got the break, and everyone else on my team was working, and I felt
Oh
so
no.
guilty,
No, that's
like
even
so
worse.
guilty.
That's even worse.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, for
Yeah.
real? I'm like, I can't even enjoy my day off. My day off on a weekend, by the way, was
That's
that
crazy.
was the day off. So, but it taught me to appreciate work-life balance at a
Yeah.
very early age, and to advocate for myself, and to not be afraid to speak up when situation is crappy. And it could have gone very badly for me. I mean, my manager could have just told me to like bugger off, but he was nice about it. I still felt guilty, but yeah, I came away with that. And one of the reasons why I left is my last role there. I was put into this impossible situation where I was all of a sudden managing two tech teams and a business analyst team. And guess what? I was doing a crappy job of all three, because like, what the hell, man? I was in my maybe mid-20s at the time, and trying to like manage these three teams that were very different. And I unfortunately had very toxic client counterparts, and a couple of toxic coworkers who were trying to like railroad me. And I'm like, bro, I'm done with this. And also, I like that kind of, at least at the time, I don't know how it is now, but at the time, I was being groomed for management.
Mm.
And it was not my jam.
Yeah.
You know, just didn't I didn't feel like I was well suited for it.
Sure.
So I decided, like, I how can I become a manager if I don't have the correct tech skills
Sure.
to support it. So I decided to leave and go to a and work on my skills as a software engineer. So I stayed in software jobs for a long time. But it's funny though, because a company like that kind of and I think it's not just an Accenture thing. I think it's like a lot of tech companies kind of leave you with the impression that to move up, you have to go into management.
Yeah.
But management isn't for everyone. And when I finally did get a proper taste of management, like, I was like, ew.
Ew. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I like didn't do it for a little bit, and then I did it again, thinking, oh, it'll be better this time. And then I was like, ew.
Yeah.
And then never again. Like, it's not for me. And to discover that there are paths um, where can be in management. Sorry, where you can move up the career ladder as an individual contributor and not be in management, was like eye-opening for me. I'm like, oh, this is great, because this is what I like to do. Like, my favorite thing in the world is to like solve cool problems and share them with people. Like, I remember having a conversation recently, well, with two recent managers, and they're like, so what are your career aspirations? I'm like, I'm pretty happy with
Yeah.
the stage I've hit in life. Like, I'm a principal level. That's pretty damn good. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I don't want to be a director of anything. I don't want to be a VP of anything. I want to keep doing my thing and helping people out and learning cool things. Because for me, the minute I stop learning cool things, that's when I get bored. And bored me is the worst kind of me.
Yeah. Oh man. Like you have no idea how much that resonates a lot with me, because I see this time and time again, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like the something principle, where basically people get leveled up to like the level they are where they're no longer efficient or no longer successful. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah. I know,
But
it's at the tip of my tongue.
yeah,
Isn't it
but
like the Peter principle or
yeah, something like
something?
that. Where it's
Something like
basically,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically like people climb the ladder until there's no more rungs for them to go up, right? And you know what if for anybody that's had kind of a bad manager or somebody they've worked with that hasn't really had like the skills, it's usually because of that. Because they were put
Yeah.
into a situation where they were given an opportunity to be a manager, and whether they wanted to or not, they lacked the prerequisite skills to be able to do that effectively. And then everybody kind of suffers, right? Um, but I think one thing that's really, really important, and I really appreciate you saying it, is like it's okay for you to stay at a particular level in career if it brings you joy, because there's always pressure to like I got to make more money, I got to have more responsibility, I got to have more impact, all whatever the phrases are, right? And I think one of the things that we need to be a bit better with as humans is just accepting it's okay to be happy where you are and not think you need more. Because I mean, I can only speak for this as an American. Maybe you feel similar things living in Canada, or having a the history that you have. It's like American exceptionalism is one of these things where like we have to be making as much as possible. It has to be more, 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 more. Like we're never really like satisfied. There's always hunger there, and that's good. But it doesn't always the hunger doesn't always have to be satiated with like more money or more things or a better title. It could just be like I'm doing projects that I enjoy, and then I'll do more projects that I enjoy. And I think that once we start to realize that more and more in society, like I think it'll benefit all of us. But that's a different conversation for a different day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think like I spent a lot of time, especially like if you work at one of those organizations that have an up or out model, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what's wrong with staying at level, if you're comfy there. But I spent a chunk of my career, I've been in tech for 24 years, and I spent most of that time, I think up until the last 5 years, lamenting like, oh, so and so that I went to school with as a director or a VP, and
Oh
look at me,
yeah.
I'm a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
loser because
Yeah.
I'm not even a manager. And it's like, and then I realized I'm like, but I don't even want that life.
Yeah.
So what the hell am I even aspiring to at that point, you
Oh
know?
yeah. I mean, I've given up on the imposter syndrome thing. Like I feel like imposter syndrome is just a healthy byproduct of caring.
Yeah, yeah.
And because of that, like I'm gonna run into people that, you know, have crazy titles, or they do crazy things and they're very well known and they happen to be my age or younger, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, like I look around, like I got a lot of shit, like and I'm happy with the shit that I have, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
that took me a long time to just like be okay with like
Yeah.
having enough. And I mean, anyway, like this is a great conversation, because I think one of the things that I talk to people that are like new in tech, and like I think similar to you, if you have the opportunity to
Yeah.
mentor people, it's like people just want to be successful and they don't really know what success means. They just know that success has to be something.
Yeah.
And especially in technology, like there is so much noise and pain that goes through the process of being successful in tech, or being happy in tech, that we're always on the risk of burning out, right? Like it could be like on a project to project basis where, hey, I'm working this project and I just can't stand whether the tech stack or the people, or I don't enjoy the actual work. I can't wait to get to the next thing. And then
Yeah.
like at the micro level, it's like, okay, well, my entire job cycles around like I can't get this to build, I need to change it. I can't get this to build, I need to change it, and so on and so forth, right? And when I tell people that are getting started into tech, I'm like, you just have to be very patient and be aware that like not everything is going to go right the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the nth time. And that's
Yeah.
part of it, because when you do things right, it powers you through the next time, which could be a variable length, could be a day, could be a month, could be a year.
Yeah.
And if you can't gather, like if you can't get around that, you're not going to enjoy working in tech at all, because the volatility of the things that we do, the pressure in a lot of cases to the things that we do, the constant like negative feedback loop that we have, not because of bad people, just because that's how technology works.
Yeah.
You need like a very specific kind of curiosity to want to do that sort of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the social media age too,
Yeah.
it becomes even harder because not only are we we're affected by, especially if you're a software engineer, and someone's bitching about like the feature that you lovingly developed, and someone's bitching about that, on Twitter or whatever, and you're like, oh my God. Or just um just the nature of social media where you have people in tech who are like, oh, look at this wonderful thing that I've done, and look at my perfect curated tech life, and you're like, oh, I'm living
Yeah.
my life wrong. So then it gets very easy to fall into that as well.
Yeah, I mean it I've been very fortunate that I've had people as mentors in my career that have basically been able to kind of push the reset button and say, look, this isn't like what you want to be doing. Try something else. And I think that one of the things that I'm nervous or anxious about is that we're going to see less and less of that because of AI, right? I think there's going to be more pressure to get things done. Like, I always hated like in resumes, if you or job postings, they would say like, we need a fast starter, quick starter, hit the ground running,
Yeah,
all these sort of things, right?
yeah,
Because what I immediately took that as from was like, oh, you don't want me to like learn how to like work in your company. You just want me to like be productive immediately. And I think
yeah,
now with
yeah,
AI, we're going to see more and more of it's like, okay, day one, all right, I need you to write a feature for this thing, like use a prompt to be able to kind of do that, use content, like, and that there's value there. But, I think that there's humanity that's a part of this that's kind of going to be like less and less a part of the conversation or a part of the equation.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
One of the things that I love to hear too with people as they go through their kind of tech careers, like technologies that they came across, they immediately kind of gravitated towards. Like I know now, like you're vocal in like the cloud native CNCF areas and Kubernetes and observability. Like what are some kind of technology trends that as you went through your career, you were very much like, oh yeah, I like doing that. That's fun.
Yeah. So I think the first one, which kind of it it evolved in a way that I didn't really expect it to, was in my last year of university. I did my fourth year thesis on mobile application development. And this was before, like, this was in the time of like flip phones and stuff, and the in-phone browser.
Sure, sure,
When you
sure.
pulled up the in-phone browser and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna spend a fortune in data. Um, but where the web pages, they used WAP, or wireless access protocol,
Yep.
um, for like those web pages, and I think it was like WML, which was like a variant of HTML, but for wireless. It was like wireless markup language or something. So I did a whole, like, I built an entire application that would run. It was a Java application using J2EE running on a mobile phone. And my thought at the time was like, this mobile app development thing is going to be big.
Sure.
Now, it was quite interesting to see that, yes, it did end up big, but not in the way that it was going, like not in that direction. So it's quite fascinating that, like, WAP, WML, like that stuff doesn't even come into our conversation anymore. It's like, from a bygone era, um, barely remembered. But it is interesting that the general concept that, development for mobile applications did become a big thing. So that was kind of my earliest one. I would say my next one was when I got into DevOps, and it was, I would say, quasi by accident, because I found myself in a role where I was managing a team that was responsible for helping troubleshoot bugs in prod from our development team, but also managing like the of fixes into prod. And I remember I was like the one who was in charge of one particular release, and I had written these instructions for the release in a Word doc, and then anonymous person from call center in other country then got this Word doc the day of, and hopefully read my instructions correctly, which hopefully I wrote correctly, and then executed said instructions correctly. Well, guess what? That didn't happen. So
Mm.
they made a mistake during the execution, which is, like, I don't blame them. I mean, the process was fraught with like failure points, and so things just went bad. And a deployment that should have taken, a few hours on a Friday ended up taking most of a weekend. And onto that, I was sick as a dog. I had lost my voice. I couldn't even talk to the guy on the phone properly. I was like,
Oh wow.
barely could get a word out. And after this, I remember like I was at my parents' place a week later. I'm like complaining to my dad. I'm like, oh my God, this thing was like so horrible and I almost died. And somehow we got it into prod. I don't know how we managed. And then he's like, you should take a look at this DevOps thing. I'm like, what? So I started like doing some research and I took it upon myself because I'm like, ooh, fun. Let's see what we can automate on our team. And so I started just doing some automations for my team, and at the same time, the company I was with was standing up a DevOps org, and so I asked to be part of that. And my original job was to be like a DevOps coach, and then I became the lead of the DevOps coaches, and pretty soon like my team was basically defining the entire direction for DevOps in this organization. We're developing the practices and standards around it, and we even developed and I was part of it. We wrote software that automated the creation of DevOps pipelines to keep developers from harming themselves by not following the DevOps principles that we were preaching. And so I guess DevOps was kind of my gateway drug into the world of like platform engineering
Sure.
and observability. So it was because of that that I got into Kubernetes like while developing this internal tool. It was running on OpenShift, and so OpenShift was like my first Kubernetes, which was a wake up call when I used Kubernetes for real, and I'm like, what? All these extra things that were in
Yeah.
OpenShift, that's not part of Kubernetes? Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? So yeah, it was kind of fun to end up in that. And yeah, and then I ended up in from there in observability when I applied for a job at Two Cows. And if you're old enough, it's that Two Cows, the one for downloading free Windows software. They
Yep.
weren't doing that when I was working there. They're a domain wholesaler, but I was asked to lead a DevOps team. Sorry, a platform engineering team specializing in the Hashi stack, and an observability team. And I'm like, well, I use Kubernetes, and they use NAD, so I'm like, let's see if I can translate Kubernetes world to Nomad world. So like I started learning in public, blogging about what I was learning, about the Hashi stack and about observability. And then that led me to getting nominated as a HashiCorp ambassador. And I was a HashiCorp ambassador for like 2 or 3 years because of that work. Because I took it upon myself to like, hey, these things that run on Kubernetes, how do I make them run on Nomad? So I did a lot of work around that. And then on the observability side, I'm like, I'm managing this observability team. I peripherally know what observability is, but
Sure.
not enough to like, how can I lead an observability team if I don't know, if I don't understand it fundamentally myself? So I asked a lot of questions. I bugged a lot of people on various Slacks and wrote a lot of blog posts, and it ended up getting the attention of my former manager at Lightstep, who after I posted a link to one of my blog posts on Twitter, they reached out to me and said, "How would you like to do this for a living?" And I'm like, "That's a job."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, DevRel's a job? What? So that became my first DevRel job, was because of all this stuff. And I would say my gateway drug was DevOps that led me down this path. And if I hadn't started with that, I wouldn't be where I am now.
I mean, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, I think one of the things that I initially grabbed on is like the DevOps principles that we well, I guess I'm trying to stumble over my own feet. I'm sorry. But like when you start off with like learning about DevOps, you learn from a very specific point of view, like what sort of technology that I can use to kind of help accelerate change at an organization, right? And then you talked about
Yep.
going to platform engineering, and then you talked about going to cloud native or microservice type of things with Kubernetes, and then observability. And I guess my question, like overarching, is like, do you think that a lot of these, like, it's very cyclical and like there are sequential in the you go DevOps and then you do this and then you do this and then you do this. When I talk to a lot of customers or companies, like a lot of them like are still in like trying to figure out how to like effectively do DevOps in their organizations.
Yeah.
So like they don't have the opportunity to take advantage of microservice architectures and taking advantage of orchestration like Kubernetes or taking advantage of observability. Like what is the breaking point in your opinion? Like what stops people from being able to adapt these technologies a bit faster? Because let's be real, like you and I, we're in tech, we kind of work on the cutting edge of tech, we're learning about these new things that are happening as they come out. But if you talk to people that are building things, maybe they work, in an insurance company, or they work at some random company, they don't get to really enjoy a lot of these things. So what do you think
Yeah.
slows down sort of that rate of change? Is it organizational structures? Is it like lack of buy-in from leadership? Like from your experience, I'd love to hear that.
Oh, I think it's definitely all of the above. It's a human problem at the end of the day, right? It's the socio-technical, it's the classic socio-technical problem. Because what I found, like when I was on this team, where we're, rolling out our DevOps standards and practices, there's only so far we can go. Now, on the one hand, we had a DevOps organization, which technically was supporting the rollout of DevOps in the organization. And I think we were semi-successful in insofar as we got a lot of teams excited about DevOps. So I would say it was like one of my early advocacy roles without realizing it, because I ensured that my team and I did a lot of internal education, like what is DevOps? Why do we care? Did a lot of internal blogging and promotion and speaks internally within the organization. So I got a lot of people excited about DevOps. We did make a lot of strides as far as when it came to like building our code, building and packaging our code. But then the barrier lay at when it came to deploying the code. We had, unfortunately, people working in operations who had been at this organization for a lifetime and who were used to doing things their way. They were perfectly okay reading the Word docs and manually executing or copy pasting commands from the Word doc, and to
Sure.
be told all of a sudden you have to learn Ansible and you have to learn all this stuff and blah blah blah. All of a sudden they're feeling extremely threatened. There were people who were making lots of money in overtime, because they were, it's like, oh, this thing broke. Well, I'm going to monitor emails and save the day and go
Yeah.
fix stuff up. And so there was no incentive to want to change the operations side of things. And then you're also dealing with leadership who effectively were not willing to change either, because they've been around for a while and they wanted to protect their own. It's like they're
Sure.
crying to mommy and daddy and like, oh, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. We'll make the bad man go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We won't make you automate. It's okay. So we never, that organization never lived up to its full potential. I don't know where they're at now, but at the time, I think that was the biggest challenge, is this lack of desire to want to improve, because they were perfectly okay
Yeah.
with the status quo. That's what they were comfortable with. And you see that in a lot of organizations. And I think the biggest failure of DevOps that you see across the board, and might be a spicy opinion for some, is the fact that the whole intent of DevOps was to bridge the gap between Dev and Ops. And what did we do? We inserted another thing in the
Yeah.
middle.
We create another we
And
create
now
another we
you've
create
got
another
to
practice, right? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like another silo. Congratulations. Like this was not the intent. So I mean, yes, on the one hand, one could argue that things are better in the sense that we do have automation pipelines. And that has helped a lot. And I think a lot of organizations have succeeded in creating, I'd say, pretty robust CI/CD pipelines. Have we honored the promise of DevOps? I would say many organizations have succeeded at CI/CD. Have they succeeded at DevOps? I'd say the jury is still out there. on that one. And I think we see that on various other things, as new things come up, like even take observability. Um, and I've done a bunch of writing around this, and I've done some talking about this as well, where um, there's I think organizations see the need and importance for observability,
Sure.
and so they want to incorporate that in their practice. But what gets dangerous is when you have, overzealous leadership who are like, let's do observability, but like we ain't got time for this. We got a product to roll out. So
Mm.
like, let's spin up this observability team over here and get them to instrument the developer's code. And it's like, bro, what?
Yeah.
Why, like, that makes no sense. It's like if I said, "Hey Isaac, I wrote this application code. Can you like please just, instrument it for me?" You don't really know what it does, but like I'm sure you can do a lovely job of instrumenting my code for me. Like, come on, like,
Yeah.
when we're writing code, we're writing our own log statements because we know what pieces of information are important for us to be able to troubleshoot. So what makes you think that have outsourcing it effectively to another team to do that on your behalf, where you're saying, yes, write my logs for me, insert my traces for me in a place that you think would best be suitable. Throw some metrics together that would be useful for me. Oh, and by the way, observability team, create some dashboards for
Yeah.
me too, because I ain't got time. Like our SRE team's busy, so just create some dashboards for us, okay? And it's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That is so weird and contrary to what it's meant to be. Like observability is part of your SRE practice, it's part of your QA practice, it's part of your dev practice. So why are you throwing a single team? Why are you throwing that responsibility onto a single team?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're very guilty in tech too of I've heard this tool is good. Let's use this tool. And really
Yeah. Oh yeah.
understanding like, okay, what is the tool for, and like what are the structural or organizational changes that need to take place for this tool to be successful. I mean, and I've said this 1,000 times in the show, so I apologize for people that have heard before, but it's like you can't have good DevOps unless your teams get put together in a way that's successful DevOps. You can't have, like you talk about, observability teams and SRA teams. You can't have all these things just by saying like, okay, we're going to use this tool. We're going to use, observability like SaaS of choice, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of them
Yeah.
out there,
Totally.
right? Whatever. You can't like just pick up Kubernetes and start using it. Like I think that's very, very clear, right?
Yep.
And I think that one things that we struggle with in tech is like always like we're hammers always looking for nails, and sometimes it's okay to have a process that works, that is secure and robust and does all the things, and not use like the latest and greatest of tech. But if there's opportunities to use that latest and greatest of tech, and you can make modifications to your team structure and your skill sets that are within the people of your team to be successful, then use it.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about observability for, I don't know, a long time. Like I have a talk about it, and like it's just crazy that the amount of things that like people have been asked to do, like developers have been asked to do, and like the name of observability. Like you're talking about
Yeah.
like, oh, create me a dashboard. Oh, do this. Oh, do that. Like all these things. And one of the things that I've kind of fallen upon, unfortunately, is like developers are like the most curious people in organizations from a technology standpoint. So they're kind of given the stuff with that has the
Yeah.
most ambiguity to solve. And unfortunately, like we run into such like you were talking about DevOps earlier. Like most DevOps engineers were like devs. They had to learn Terraform or whatever, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of successful devs they move over to SRE because they enjoy that process of trying to make applications more scalable, systems more robust, all that sort of things, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we go like forward to like the next phase of what tech looks like, what sort of people are going to be most successful in these roles where it's like, okay, like we have an issue in production, the SRE agent found these issues to mitigate looking at these logs. This is a potential, sample of code to fix it. Do you want me to implement it? Like what sort of people are going to be successful like in that role, kind of like, was this is a bad example, but it's like, chair of the Enterprise, like Captain Kirk, like sitting in the Enterprise,
Yeah.
and like everybody else is like giving them information. Then you have to basically say yes or no to things, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what sort of people are going to be successful in that role, do you think?
Ooh, I think people who are curious, um, people who yeah, I think curiosity I think is the most important one. I think trust but verify, having that kind of ingrained into your, how you work, I think goes a long way. Um, and I think going with the curiosity, like having a desire to understand, at least from a high level, the inner workings of your system. Because I think one of the things that we um, run the risk of getting into as a society, and like I'm not here to poo-poo AI or anything. I think there's some really cool uses for it, but we don't want to get to the point where we're trusting things so blindly that we're like, yeah, this looks okay, right? Or like the junior dev who, they don't have enough experience to call bullshit on the crappy code that AI has generated, because they don't have enough experience, they don't have enough like domain knowledge, they don't have they're lacking some of that background. It kind of reminds me, if you've read Isaac Asimov's Foundation, the idea that like, this galactic empire is crumbling as a result of its own success. They've built these wonderful technologies that are so great that now the people who used to know how to maintain these systems are long gone, and the technology is crumbling because there's nobody left anymore to who knows how this stuff works. And I think that's, so we need to have people in place, and we need to foster that curiosity with our next generation of folks in the workforce in tech, who still understand, like, I'm not saying understand like the nitty-gritty of how microprocessors work, but have an appreciation for the stuff that powers your technology. I'm not saying like, as a developer, do you need to be able to build like that perfect, containerization for your code? Nah, I'd probably write
Yeah.
the shittiest Docker files ever, but like I know how to build a Docker file. I know
Yeah.
how it works. And I think having that fundamental knowledge in place, and providing also that mentorship for the younger folks. Otherwise they're going to come up and they're going to be like those, poor people in Foundation who are like, don't know how to fix this anymore. So, let's just let it crumble. Or maybe then AI will take over, and then who knows?
Who knows? I mean, that's the ultimate, like, I think thing that's going to be most interesting. It's like, at what point in time do does a human step in and say, like, look, I want to do this work, stop, computer, stop. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's, and I've had this conversation with people. That's a variable thing, right? Like, some people, like, I don't want any of this. I just want, like, if I have a for loop, I want to complete my for loop for me. Some people are like, I want to put in, like, basically like a page of documentation and have it generate me like a fully functioning app. Right? Everybody's
Mm,
a different place in how they want to use these things. But I still think that the value that people have, the people that have skills in all of the existing like ancillary pieces of technology are going to be super successful, because as we get more and more dependent on this stuff, there's just more and more things that need to get done from a review standpoint. So
hmm
yeah, like, you're an SRE, like, you can look at a sample of code or a snippet of code that an AI put together, or an AI generated LLM could put together, and just say, oh, like, I don't think this is exactly what we want. So you make some modifications to it instead of just blindly pressing play. Um, so I
exactly.
think that's going to be really interesting, is because eventually, like, there's going to be this, get the code out there as fast as possible, get ship faster, ship faster,
Yeah.
ship faster. But also, our company is going to be more, I guess, accepting of, like, more failure. Like, I know, like, ship fast and fail often is a thing, but like, only to a particular point in time when we don't make money anymore, right? And I think that's what's
Yeah,
going to be fascinating. Is like, because you're already seeing like a lot of companies laying off people and then having to hire those jobs back because AI didn't solve their promise or whatever, right? Because I do think that this is just another tool, like Kubernetes, like OpenTelemetry, like DevOps tooling, like it's just another tool to be successful.
yep.
This conversation has been awesome, and I wanted to kind of finish up. I know we're a little bit over, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff you're doing at Dynatrace, because I first
Yeah.
off, I've been a follower of Dynatrace for a bit, and I know some people that already work there. We talked about that a bit, but like, you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about like what you do at Dynatrace? We know that you're a staff developer advocate, right? But like, let me just give me through like the day to day, or some of the things that you find interesting that are going on in this space.
Yeah, yeah. Just a quick correction, principal developer
Principal,
advocate.
sorry.
No, no worries, no
Staff
worries.
principal, lead, whatever. Yes, principal.
Yeah,
Go ahead, go
so
ahead.
yeah, my role, so my focus is on OpenTelemetry. So Dynatrace has been, I would say, one of the early careers of OpenTelemetry. So OpenTelemetry, for those who aren't aware, started in 2019 when OpenTracing and OpenCensus merged. And so Dynatrace has been there from the start, which is really cool, but not a lot of people know that. So part of my job is to make folks aware. Like, I've been working with OpenTelemetry for the last little while. Um, and so when I joined Dynatrace, like, when I was looking for my next job, I really wanted to work at another observability vendor where I could continue my work around advocacy of observability and OpenTelemetry. And so part of it is continuing my work within OpenTelemetry. So I'm one of the maintainers of the OpenTelemetry End User SIG. And one of our goals is to connect end users with each other, but also to bring feedback from end users to the various maintainers of OpenTelemetry to help inform the direction of features that are added to OpenTelemetry. So yeah, I've basically been really focusing on the OpenTelemetry advocacy to really continue what I was doing before, but also teaching people, hey, Dynatrace does support OpenTelemetry, and here's what it can do with OpenTelemetry. Because I think I know a lot of folks who use Dynatrace are probably familiar with the One Agent, which is awesome, and like. I think it's cool that you can basically ingest OpenTelemetry data either through the One Agent or through the OpenTelemetry collector, and we support both happily. So my job is to like provide a little bit of a little more information on how to do things the pure OpenTelemetry way. And one of my coworkers, Andy Grabner, who's been at Dynatrace forever, and I call him Mr. Dynatrace. He knows all the things about Dynatrace, and he's great. So when I joined last year, I just completed my 1 year anniversary this month. He's like, hey, I want to, just make sure you get familiar with the product. I'll show you around. And I'm like, this is really cool. I think more people need to know the cool stuff about Dynatrace. Like, I knew about Dynatrace, but I didn't know all the cool stuff it could do. So I'm like, hey, what if we did like a video series where you're just showing me Dynatrace features and I'm reacting for the first time? So it's
Yeah,
like genuine reactions. So I have this YouTube video series called Dynatrace Can Do That with OpenTelemetry. If you go to the Dynatrace YouTube channel, the playlist is called Dynatrace Loves OpenTelemetry, where you can see Andy showing me various things that Dynatrace can do and how I apply that to OpenTelemetry data. So there we are.
that's great. I mean, we talked about observability a bit earlier, but it's one of those things where there's a million things going on in this space, and I think that
Mhm.
having people that are kind of, I guess you can call them shepherds, as to like finding the areas of interest for folks is really, really valuable. I love the idea. It's like, and also from the Dynatrace perspective, like show me like something that I didn't know that existed. Like
Hmm.
we're so guilty in tech of like not paying attention to everything because there's so much going on. That just something as simple as like, hey, did you know this is a thing? Like 30 seconds or a minute of like, oh, here's something that you probably didn't know, like resonates a lot with people. So kudos to you and the team for
Exactly.
putting that program together. Um, this conversation has been great. I really appreciate getting to know how you got started and learning a little bit about kind of your interest in these like different areas of tech. Because there are a lot of things you're saying. I'm very much like, yep, I was there. I remember that. I remember this. Because I think that in tech, I think there are people that are genuinely curious and they're always trying to play around with the new things. And
Yeah.
most of the time, the people that I've had on this show follow that same frame where it's like, oh yeah, like I'm definitely fine with like things not working the way that I want to every single time. And it's nice to
Yeah.
hear that you're of a similar, so you're joining the club, so to speak, of people on my show that are like, oh yeah, like I played around with all the new bits, all the spicy things not working, and also helping giving back to the community via, the Cloud Native Foundation and all that sort of stuff. So that's great. And I appreciate you for that. And for anybody that isn't already aware of Adriana and what she's doing, I highly recommend that you can find her on all sorts of different, all forms of different social media platforms. I know that you're on GitHub. I know that you're on Hackaderm, which is Mastodon, and there'll be
Yep.
some links to some other places as well, LinkedIn also. And I highly recommend you go out and you follow or whatever the subscribe, whatever the phrase is to check out what she's doing. I highly recommend it. So before we sign off, did you have any parting words?
Oh, parties. You know what? I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people who are just starting out their careers in tech and want to build out a personal brand. And just because you're not working in DevRel doesn't mean you shouldn't build out a personal brand. I think in this day and age, it's extremely important, and putting yourself out there is extremely important. And it's been interesting talking to a few people who are like, oh, I'm just getting started. I don't know if I have anything interesting to say. And my advice to you is you always have something interesting to say, because at the end of the day, like if you're new to a piece of technology, it means that you're approaching it from fresh eyes. So you're looking at it from a perspective that people who have been in it for 5, 10, 20 years have not seen before.
Sure.
So you're bringing like a really cool way of seeing things. And also, a lot of people are like, oh, we don't need like more getting started stuff. Absolutely, you do, because there's
Yeah.
always more people getting started with stuff. So use that as an opportunity, like to build out your brand. Don't be afraid to like, share your opinions on LinkedIn. It can be spicy or non-spicy. It doesn't have to be super spicy. LinkedIn is a great way to build out an audience for anyone who's looking to build out a personal brand. It's been very good to me. And if you like writing, I highly recommend blogging. Blog for yourself, don't blog for an audience. Because when you blog for yourself, I think it shows in your writing. So yeah, and plus it serves as great reference material for when you
Yeah.
forget
When you
about the
forget
stuff
things,
that
yeah.
you learned
Yeah.
5 years later, and you're like, oh, thank you, past me, for writing about this. So yeah.
Yes, plus one to all of that. I think that, one of the things that we can all be successful is like do the things you enjoy doing. And the things you don't enjoy doing, try to do them less. And I think, if you enjoy creating content, if you enjoy speaking, if you enjoy blogging, if you enjoy whatever, like just figure out ways to do more of that. And I kudos to you for finding all the time to do all the things that you do. Like you listed all the things that you're currently doing. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. All right. So back to the
I just feel like it's a lot.
back to the imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, all right, well, she does a lot. Okay, cool. All right. So this has been great. I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been great to know you and great to learn more about what you find interesting because, again, this sort of thing is fascinating to me and I love talking with people. So, and I appreciate the folks that were watching the show live as well as listening in the future. And so my name is Isaac Levin. This has been Coffee and Open Source and from my friend Adriana. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.